I'm going to be making, two or three little clematis clutches as we go along. I can always put these in my little Etsy shop, and I can show you a couple different things on some different types of fabrics. This is kind of a linen-y fabric that does have some sparkle in it. And I've picked out my hardware and my zipper, my lining, and my contrast, and I'm going to put some embroidery on this one. So that's where our embroidery lesson's going to kind of come in. This is the one I'm going to fussy cut, which you saw in last week's video. And I'm kind of undecided about whether to use a brown or a silver zipper, so I've kind of got them laid out here. Going to be thinking about that as I go along. This one wasn't any trouble at all to decide what color hardware to use, and hardware comes in many different colors. I'm not sure what you can find locally, like at Joann's or somewhere like that, but there are various places online where you can order different colors: rose gold, silver, nickel, black, gold, golly, rainbow. There's just a lot of different ones out there and available. But for what I'm going to be doing, I'm just using this rose gold, silver, and black. Over here I have black hardware, black zipper with gold and a gold zipper pull. And this is some cork, which I'm going to be putting with this. This is the lining. I'm going to fussy cut this, and this is the contrast at the bottom of the bag. And this is just cotton. So over here I've got some linen-y fabric with some cotton, and over here I have just cotton, and here I have cotton and cork. So we'll be using some different feet and some fun techniques. And so we can get started cutting out. I want to be sure and mention the fusible fleece. You'll need some fusible fleece probably. This will depend on what kind of fabric you are using. You'll definitely need some, this is Woven Fuse interfacing. This might be Woven Fuse 2, I'm not sure, but I think it's Woven Fuse 1. Anyway, Pellon SF101 is the same thing. Maybe a little less sturdy than the Woven Fuse, but pick up some SF101 at Joann's or Woven Fuse if you can find it. And this is the fusible foam. So it's not very thick, you see, and we're going to use it for stability in our little bag. So you'll need a little bit of this fusible foam interfacing. So there we go. There's, except for thread, I don't have thread laid out here, but I will come up with some matching thread for these guys. And let's get started cutting out our little clematis wristlet. If you're using cork or vinyl, try to conserve as much as you can. I'm just using a sew line marker, and most of the time cork is sold in rolls like this, so it's much longer than it is wide. And so I try really hard to think about things when I'm cutting out my cork, because 2 this way takes up much less room than 2 this way. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark my cork here, and I'll cut out 2 of these contrast pieces. And get those all lined up. And there's one. I'll get this one as close as I can and mark it. Be right back when I'm done cutting these out. Just just a mention here about cork. And if you're cutting cotton, or it doesn't matter what kind of fabric you are using, if you have a directional print, you can see this one does kind of go this way and not this way. So I'll be looking at this the right way when I have it sewn into my little wristlet. But you'll want to take note, and if your fabric is a directional fabric, make sure it's going the way you want it to go for your little bottom contrast. I'm going to make sure and cut out your little darts that are here at the bottom of your contrast piece. Make sure we get those cut out. When you come to a little point like this and it just wants to hang on, try not to pull on it. It's easy to try to get a hold of it and pull it, but try not to do that. It doesn't matter what kind of fabric you're using. It's never good to pull fibers apart like that when you know, it might show. You could drag a thread and pull a thread, and you'll have a snag that runs up into your bag. It's good to just take the time and clip them. There we go. All right, there's the bottom of my little sheep, my little contrast part of my little sheep bag. This is the lining for my little sheep bag. And this is my interfacing. This is woven fuse. And you can see it's shiny here and it's not shiny here. So this is the non-sticky side and this is the glue side. So of course, you know that to get this on, we've got to use heat. And we're not going to use steam at all. Steam shrinks things. You'll find that when you do a nice, beautiful embroidery on your machine and you take it out of the hoop and take it over and press it and use a little steam, and then all of a sudden that puckers right up. Steam shrinks things. And it's the same with garment sewing. If you haven't pre-treated your fabric, which I have not washed this because it's going into a bag, but if you were making a garment, you would pre-treat your fabric and hopefully get all the shrinkage out of it. So then you could probably get away with using steam. But remember that steam shrinks things. So what I'm going to do here, this is my lining pattern piece. So what I'm going to do in my pocket, which I only need one of, my slip pocket, I'm going to cut out a ways around this pattern piece, and then I'm going to cut 2 pieces of woven fuse or SF101 to match and fuse this to the back of my fabric, and then I'm going to cut out my pattern. Okay, we're ready to fuse our interfacing on. It's always a good idea to warm the fabric up a little bit. Give it a little press. And earlier I said you would only need 1 for that slip pocket, but you will need 2. So be sure and read your pattern. It says cut 2, lining fabric. So I've cut out a couple of scraps here, a little bit larger than the pattern piece. And I've cut out a couple pieces of woven fuse. So you can see this is quite a bit bigger, and if I'm not careful, I'll stick it to my pressing mat. So let's trim it to where it's a little bit smaller than the piece I need. So we'll just snag under here a little bit, and we'll trim it to where it's just a little smaller. And you don't want to get this stuff on your ironing board or your iron. It's a mess, let me tell you, quite a mess. And we can't cut too much of this off because my pattern piece just fits. Let's cut this one right to the edge. I'm just sort of shaving off like a 30/2 of an inch here. I don't think I need up here, so. And just to be safe, I'm going to use a press cloth if I can find it. I had it laying right here. Here it is. This is just a piece of an old sheet. And this works just really good for a press cloth. So I'll stick this down a little bit, and then I'm going to check things. So, let's see here. That's my slip pocket. Definitely going to fit. That looks good. Let's check the other side. Yeah. All right, so I will fuse the other half of my slip pocket and be right back, and we will do our lining body. There we go. There's part of our lining all done. Half of it, I guess you could say. Make sure we get a good bond. Be sure and read your directions on your interfacing on what kind of heat and how long you leave the heat on. So there's half of our lining. Here's the other half. Warm the fabric up. A little press. And let's see, where is our, here we go. This is our interfacing here. Okay, here we go. We're just about ready to cut out our lining and our slip pocket. All right, let's check the back. Looks nice. Give it one good press, and we're all set. Okay. We're ready to cut out our lining and our slip pocket. Just use a ruler and a rotary cutter wherever you can. Blade still. There we go. Whoop. I'm just cutting out the slip pocket here. And then I'll come in with my scissors and cut the curves on the sides. I might be able to cut some of the sides this way. Let me see. Yep, I can. There we go. So now I'll cut the curves. And there's my slip pocket. Do the same thing with the lining pieces. These pieces do kind of curve. I think I'll cut these with the scissors. Yeah. There we go. So my slip pocket and my lining is cut out. Guess I better do my little darts here. There we go. Now we're all set. Okay, I'm getting ready now to fussy cut the front of the sheep fabric. I've got my lining, got my contrast. Okay, now I need to cut out my sheep fabric. So this is the exterior back of my little Clematis. And I did not fussy cut this one because it's the back. And there aren't very many places on this fabric where the dog is. So I'm going to cut this oversized, just like I did for the lining, and I will interface this just like I did the lining. And I found the center of my exterior top pattern piece, and I already had the center top to bottom because of taping the two pieces of the fabric or the pattern together. So now I have the center here, so when I get ready to locate my little dog on one of these that I can fussy cut out the little dog in the middle. There we go. There's a little dog right there. And so I know this is the top. So what I have to do is center this. And I'll overcut this too, and then really get crazy about making sure my little dog's in the middle after I get it interfaced. So, whoops, sorry. But I've got a general idea where he's at now. So I'll cut this out and interface it, and then I'll cut him out so he's perfect. So for my fussy cut, I can see through my fabric. I kind of see through my fabric where my little dog is here in the middle, my little sheepdog. And my center piece here, all I have to really do is get right down the middle, and I'm kind of looking on the other side where you might not be able to see with the camera, and I'm kind of putting that pink line sort of across his chest, because I think his head, if I go across his chest, his head's about that much and his legs are about that much. This is about even. So, and I've got this nice and straight, so I'm going to go ahead and mark it and cut it. So my little dog will be right in the middle of the front. So if you want to fussy cut something, maybe you've got a piece of fabric that's got a Disney character, or maybe you have a piece of fabric that has a flower or something on it that you really like, and you'd like it to be a focal point. Definitely think about fussy cutting, because it'll really make your little clematis wristlet stand out. Or if you wanted to. Another thought would be to put some sequins or a sequined iron-on design on the front of your bag. You know, maybe you've got a wedding coming up and you would like something special for that, or maybe you're making brides and bridesmaids gifts, and you can make them each one of these and put some, you know, put a little sequined double wedding ring on the front. Those, you can get those almost anywhere, and they just iron on. Wouldn't that be fun? And this little bag is so easy to make and quick that it would make a wonderful, wonderful gift. Okay, so there we are, and my little dog's right in the middle. So I pretty much have my little sheep bag cut out. I am going to have to cut out a couple of ends for my zipper. You'll see in the directions that it'll call for that. And I haven't decided if I'm going to use the lining fabric for that or the cork, so I will cut those out when I get to them. So let's move on and let's cut something out of some linen fabric and do some embroidery. So this little bag is going to be done exactly the same way we just did the little sheep bag. This is my lining, and I will cut out my lining pieces and also my woven fuse, and I will interface those and cut them out then to size. We'll do that in the pocket just like we did before with the little sheep bag. This is going to be just a little bit different. This fabric is going to be embroidered first and cut out last. So we'll do our embroidery on this, and then we'll cut out the main exterior part of our bag. And this is my contrast piece for this bag, and this is just quilt cotton. So when I cut this out, it won't be like the cork. I will also interface this just like I'm going to do the lining. I'll cut out a piece that's a little bit bigger and put my woven fuse on it, and then I will cut out my pattern, because cork, you don't want to put too much heat to it. So, and it is already pretty stout, so I don't really need to interface cork, but I do this quilt cotton. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and do all this cutting out and interfacing so that you don't have to watch that on camera again, because you saw how to do it and you can do it. This we're going to go ahead and do some embroidery on, and so what I will do with this is probably interface a good sized piece of it with the woven fuse, bigger than what I need. I'll do a couple of pieces, the front and the back, and it'll be bigger than what I need. And then I will hoop up some sticky back tearaway. I will float some medium weight tearaway underneath it, and I'll embroider something pretty on this. And we'll go along doing that step by step, so we'll start that now. So I'm getting ready to do my embroidery, my machine embroidery, on the front of my little linen cloth Clematis bag. And I have some other videos on my YouTube channel, and some of them are in the file section of the beginners embroidery group for Bernina 7 and 8 series. You can go join that group and find those, or you can find them on my YouTube channel. But some good videos on how to download a design, move it over onto your USB stick, and put it in get it to your machine so that you can actually stitch it out. And I've also showed you in a couple of videos how to go into software and reduce or enlarge some files. So I purchased this cute little design from Urban Threads, and I did reduce it. I took it into my Embrilliance Essentials, and I reduced it by maybe half an inch or so. And I have taken this piece of fabric, which I have interfaced with Woven Fuse, and I have just gently folded it, not creased it really hard, but just gently folded it so that I can find the center of it. And I printed out my stitch out, and this prints out at the exact size that it's going to stitch, and it also gives me some registration marks on where the center of the design is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hoop. This is sticky back stabilizer. I'm going to hoop that, and then I'm going to peel the paper away, and it'll be sticky. And then I'm going to put my little bag front on, and I'm going to match up these lines with the registration marks on my hoop. And then I'm going to line up my design with the creases, the folds on my fabric. And I'm also going to use, even though this is not a really high nap textured fabric, I'm still going to use a topper. And I'm going to do that because this is linen and it is just a little bit less. I want the threads of the embroidery to stand up on the surface of the fabric. It's a lesser weave, and I just want this to show up and look great on here. So we're going to do that, and I will meet you back at the machine as we'll be ready to start the embroidery. I always kind of push my sticky back down in there because it is just a little bit hard to hoop. And I didn't look to see how far out I had my hoop unscrewed. I might have to open my hoop a little more, which is okay. Sometimes you need just a little extra room so you can get things lined up, and so your outer hoop can fit down in there and actually go down in the outer hoop. There we go. Nice and pretty. And then I always burp the hoop. When you're hooping sticky back, you want the shiny side up and the papery side down. If you hoop it the wrong way, you'll soon have it figured out that you have to take it out and start over. So now I'm burping my hoop. That's something that you would always do, no matter what you're embroidering. And burping your hoop means that you leave a little ledge around here. And especially if you have a new machine, it's real important to do this because then you'll avoid those print marks that come on the arm or the bed of your machine sometimes. I'm going to tighten this up, and not too tight. There's always a happy spot. Not too tight. The more you tighten it, it pulls these ends in and pushes these ends out. So you don't want to over tighten your hoop. So now we need to take off the paper. So I'll just use this awl. I don't know if it'll work. I usually use a stiletto, but I'll see if I can get this to work. And take the paper off, and then it'll be sticky. And we'll get ready to put our little handbag front down on here. And again, there's some good videos I've got, and other people have good videos too, not just mine. So now I'm going to place my little piece of fabric, and I'm lining it up with the markings on my hoop. And I might just, if I got this right, here's what I do. Sometimes I just push my finger there, and then I can kind of navigate without having to re-stick the whole thing. If I need to move it, I can. So, and I do, so I'm gonna scooch this up just a little bit. And so I kind of start, there we go. Now let's see where we're at here. And here we need to come over just a little bit. And it never hurts to just keep working with it until you get it just right. Because especially on a small project, you don't want to be too far off. And it's always handy to have these creases here. And sometimes you can use your template too. There's a template that goes with each of the Bernina hoops, and you can use those too. All right, let's see where we're at. Oh, very good. Okay, perfect. There we go. Finally got it. All right, so now I'm going to stick it down all over the place. And I'm going to cut a piece of this clear wash away stabilizer. And be ready to go to the machine. All right, I'm going to go to the machine and line this baby up, and we'll be ready to embroider on the front of our little bag. So here we are at the machine, and there are so many times when a new Bernina owner is just desperate to check out the embroidery side and have fun with that, and they can't seem to get the go button to work, and they have trouble getting the hoop on, taking the hoop off, wondering what is the machine telling them, asking them to do. And so we're gonna just take a moment, and we're going to just take a step-by-step journey into getting the hoop onto the machine. So I've just turned my machine on, and I was already embroidering something. So it came on, and plus I have my module on, my embroidery module. So it already recognizes that and thinks that I want to do embroidery. So it's on the embroidery side and not the sewing side. So if you wanted to go to the sewing side, you would head over here. But we're doing embroidery today, so we're going to stay here. And remember, just a minute ago, we had, I showed you that I have my design on my USB stick, and I have put that into the machine over here on the end. So we're going to look at my USB stick. And I have an awful habit of putting too many things on my USB stick. So don't do that. Just one thing at a time on your USB stick, because you can see how long it's taking my machine to take a look at my USB stick. So, and I might even, maybe this is the straw that broke the Bernina's something. it might not even look at it anymore because I have added one more thing on top of everything else that's on there. So it might not even pull it up. So let me take it and move it to a different USB stick that has much less stuff on it. Okay, so I found it, and it wants to put it in the MIDI hoop, but I want it in my large oval hoop. And this is my resized version, I believe. So we've got it. So now you see this red line around here. It's letting you know that whatever you're going to want to stitch isn't going to fit in the hoop. So we're going to rotate this and turn it, and we're going to use this icon here, which is going to let us move it, and you can move it 1 degree at a time or 90 degrees at a time. And so I'm going to turn it around so that I can read it while I'm sitting here and see it. And so there we go. Tells me here it's going to take 9 minutes. Looks like everything's is a go. So let's send it to the machine. Now when you're here, you know, this is your opportunity. Yes, the machine is looking at it, but we haven't told the machine that we actually want to stitch this now. We've been turning it, and maybe we want to resize it. You know, if we wanted to bring it in a little shorter, or you know, do something different to it. We do all that now in this sort of editing mode. And now that we're all done doing everything we're going to do to this, we're going to tell the machine we actually do want to stitch this out just the way it is. So we're going to hit the needle. And the machine is saying, I need to move my arm. It's not asking you to put the hoop on. I just need to move my arm. This arm needs to move. So we're going to tell it, okay, go ahead and move. So it did. You saw it move over here. And now it's saying pinch and put down. That is asking for the hoop. When you are doing embroidery, everything is done in an order. It's kind of like baking a cake or cookies. You do things in an order. And then they turn out delicious, don't they? So, all right, so now we have the hoop on. And now it's asking, I need to move my arm again. So it wants to move the hoop to where the first stitch will be on the design. So there it is. So now let me see. I need to put my thing on here and make sure that that's where it's going to start, because that's what I need. So I think we're pretty close. It looks to me like it's going to start. Let's see if we can see it enlarged. Oh, it's going to start right at the tip corner of that flower. So I'm off just a little bit, but not much, so I'll go ahead and leave it. But if I wanted to, I could move it over so that it started at exactly the place where the needle would go down. And the way I would do that would be using my control knobs over here. Move it up and down or side to side. But I guess this is okay. It looks pretty good. And since it's a purse and it's going to have a little bend to the front of it, I think that will be all right. But what I do want to do is I want to stitch down. Whoops, I dropped my stylus. There we go. What I do want to do is I want to stitch a basting box. So I think we'll do that first. So I'm going to tell it I want a basting box. Oh, it doesn't like it that I moved my hand wheel. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread because I'm not going to be using my thread cutter on this. One reason is because there are so many little tiny cuts in this design that it would just work my thread cutter to death. So I'm just going to tell it to let me do the cutting. So here goes my basting box. And I'm just kind of coaxing my water-soluble stabilizer on top to stay put. And now I need to change, I'm not going to cut my bobbin thread, but now I need to change my top thread to the color that I need. And if you print off your color change sheet, it will give you all the colors you need in order. So let me go see if I can find Raspberry Punch. Okay, I have my first color in. But as you can see here, hope you can see it, it's not going to stitch out very much. It's just this little pink place on the end of the flower here, so it won't be stitching very much. But I'll go ahead and we'll stitch this first color. Let me bring you down. Or lift you up. Hope I'm lifting you up doing these videos. There we go. All right, so I've pulled up my bobbin thread. You can barely see it, but there it is. And we're going to stitch this first stitch. I'm using an organ. I believe it is a size 14 needle. And it's just a universal needle. And something that I want to do. So this is a piece of cutaway. You should always use 2 layers of stabilizer. And so I've got my sticky back tearaway, and so now I'm going to float. This is called floating. I'm just sliding it under the hoop and making sure that it's right in place there. And I don't use any 505 or any kind of spray. I've never done that. Usually by the time you've stitched a couple stitches, you know, it's secured under there. So I am floating a piece of cutaway underneath here. So here we go. I'm going to stop it and trim my threads. I should have did that when my presser foot was over farther. So there we go. Okay, now we're ready for the next color. And as I said before, I'm going to cut my own threads. I'm not using my thread cutter. So the next color it's asking for is Cherry Pie. So I'll go find a Cherry Pie and I'll go ahead and keep stitching and until I get this finished up, and then we'll move on with our little Clematis wristlet. Okay, my embroidery is all done. So I will take this out of the hoop and trim the back, the cutaway stabilizer, this cutaway stabilizer on the back. I'll trim it up close to the design and take my water soluble off the front and cut out the front part of my little Clematis wristlet. And then we will be ready to sew up our little bags. Whoop. table a little ways. Here we go. All right, this turned out really cute. I like it a lot. It's gonna go great with I kind of picked my own colors. But I didn't wanna, the ones with the design were pretty bright. And I wanted to stay on the more subtle end. So I just picked my own colors for the design. And this is how the bottom will look when it's up against where I have my embroidery. And it looks pretty good. Okay, got my embroidery all cleaned up and pressed a little bit here in the middle. Did not use steam. Remember, don't use steam. So now it's time to cut out the front of my little bag. So my creases that I used to center my design in the hoop are still a little bit visible on the back. So I just centered up. I've got this pink line down through the middle of my pattern. And then I took my pencil and traced around it. And now I'm ready to cut out on this pink line. And then I'll have my front to my little bag. And so your assignments for this week are to do your embroidery if that's what you want to do. Get everything cut out and interfaced. Get your zippers found. And if you need any help with anything, feel free to message me on Facebook or leave a comment. I'll look at every one of them. And next week, we'll sew these up. So I'll see you next Tuesday on video.